Hello everyone, this is going to be a tutorial on using the rectangle and hatching tools from the draw panel. These are tools that we'll be using a lot in this class. I pulled up an example of some work that we did last year. These are some section detail drawings. This is what most of our work in AutoCAD is going to look like. And as you can see, it's a lot of rectangles stacked up on top of one another filled with a hatch. And we can definitely draw these out using polyline too, and there are some times where that'll be quicker, but for this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to draw rectangles and then fill them with a hatch. So back to AutoCAD, the first thing I would do is type in the command bar units. And I set mine to architectural for the type and then feet. You can have yours set to inches or another one if you'd prefer, but for this one I just have mine in feet, so make sure you always check units first. And then also make sure that the cursor is restricted to 9180. It'll make things look nice and parallel. Then I'd also just double check that for the snaps you at least have endpoint on to make things easier. So here, now that we're in the AutoCAD, the rectangle tool is right here in this corner. You can tell it that you want to do a rectangle either by just clicking on this or by typing RECT enter, and that's the keyboard shortcut. And just like always, it tells you the first step here in the command bar, so it says specify first corner. So we'll just click, and then from there we can either just click again by eyeballing it, or what I like to do is say dimensions, and then it'll have you type in the horizontal length first and then the vertical length. So let's type that we want it to be 8 feet, enter, and then 2 feet, enter. And then that's, and then it'll have you click one more time. So that's how to make a rectangle by those two dimensions. So just remember, you click dimensions and then you type the horizontal, then vertical. And then let's say we want to build another one, just like in these examples, we want to do another rectangle. So we're going to click either the space bar to tell it you're doing the same exact command as last time, or we would just click the rectangle or type rectangle. And then because I have my endpoint snaps on, it's snapping here. That's what that green box means, so I just clicked. And then I'm going to tell it dimensions again, type 8, enter, and then for this one I'm going to make it 3 feet long, enter. So then that's how that looks. And then let's just give it one more rectangle. So we'll start here, and then tell it dimensions, 8 feet, enter, and then 0.5 feet, enter. And so that's how that looks, and then click. So that's how to do rectangles. Obviously they don't have to snap to one another. You could then start another one here if you'd like, but for the most part all of our rectangles are going to be one on top of the other, just like this. And so yeah, just remember it's dimensions, horizontal, then vertical is what I like to think for doing rectangles. So in the next step, we're going to learn how to fill these with a hatch. So we can either type the command hatch or just click here on this square. And something to keep in mind is that we can only hatch an object that is closed. If we were to just draw 3 lines, it wouldn't let us close it, or it wouldn't let us fill it with a hatch. So since these are all their own rectangle, it's letting us hatch it. So let's say we wanted to look at one of these examples and do straight lines, this rock, asphalt looking hatch, and then this earth hatch here. So these 3 hatches that I'm pointing out. So for the first one, if we want to do stripes, you'll see here they have these stripes with their diagonal. So what you'll do is you'll click in the box where you want them, and then here is angle. So we want this to be rotated 45 degrees. You'll type 45 and click enter. And then as you can see, they're rotated that way. And then there's also this scale here. So every time you hatch, you're pretty much going to change its scale. It's rarely exactly what you want. So let's say we want this to look twice as big. Maybe that's a little too big. So now let's type 1.5, enter. And so that looks about right, and you'll just kind of eyeball it to see what looks most appropriate. You'll notice here that you don't want the pattern to be way too big or way too small, just a nice in the middle size. So that looks good, and then when I'm done with one hatch, I'll click enter, and that tells it I'm done. And so then when I'm ready to do the next hatch, same thing, click on this hatch bar, and then we'll scroll down and look for that asphalt pattern, those stones. And there it is, it's called gravel here. So I'll click on the gravel, and then here. And notice that it's already set to that scale, so I think this is maybe a little too big, so I'll tell it 1, enter. And I'll say 1.2. And that looks about right. And I'm just going to set the angle back to 0 for this. It doesn't really matter for the stones, but I'll just do that for now. And then for the earth hatch, oh, and I just clicked enter to get it back to regular. You can also click it. Yeah, you can just click enter. And then the hatch command one more time. And we're going to keep scrolling until we find the earth hatch. Oops, pass through it. There it is. This is the hatch that we use for earth. It typically is meant to show that it's soil underneath everything. So we're going to click in here where we want it to be, and then we're going to type, let's say this should be 3 times as big. And that looks maybe a little bit too big, so I'm going to tell it to enter. And sometimes you can either do this pattern straight up and down or a 45-degree angle. I think it looks best at 45. So just click enter. And then that's how you do rectangles and then fill them with a hatch. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if there's anything I can cover again.